because it's part of the Higher Education Act, which is this 650-page bill that's reauthorized it by law every 7 to 10 years, or 5 to 7 years. It's supposed to be. It took them 10 years to do it this last time. We knew that was our best chance to get something done. Standalone bills on small issues, especially drug policy issues, they don't really move. So even something like Barney Frank's States' Rights to Medical Marijuana Act, which has huge amounts of sponsors, generally not really going to move through the Congress just because it's so minor. They tend to move massive bills through Congress. Minor bills, or if it's about something important like Terry Schiavo or something like that, they might do it. But marijuana stuff, generally drug policy stuff, doesn't really move on its own. It happens as part of a larger package. So as HEA reform came up for reauthorization, we thought, all right, Democrats are in power now. One of our top allies in the Senate, Senator Kennedy, we've been working in his office for years. He's now chair of the appropriate committee in the Senate. George Miller, San Francisco Democrat, or Bay Area Democrat, big ally of ours. He's chair of the Education Committee in the House. We're going to get this done this year. Well, in the Senate, we actually did wind up with some good language in the original version of the bill, which would have effectively repealed the provision. That was later removed in an amendment when that reached the Senate floor. But in the House, we were promised by Miller, gave us his word, gave Barney Frank his word, and other allies as well, that when he introduced the Higher Education Act in reauthorization in the House, it was going to have language repealing the drug provision. Well, when it came down to it, it didn't. He broke his promise. And we were told that there were certain Republicans, Mark Souder in particular from Indiana, who were threatening to hold up this entire process. It wasn't going to be a bipartisan bill. They might not move it through committee, and so they just couldn't compromise on this. They said, but what we're going to do is when it passes, there's a part of the process called the conference committee, which is when the members of the House and members of the Senate get together and they hammer out differences in bills that have passed both houses. So any discrepancies between the two bills, they come to compromise on. And so we were promised by all of our allies in both the House and the Senate, particularly in the House, that in conference committee we're going to just take this drug provision language out. And so we waited for a few weeks, and a few weeks became a month, and a month became 2 months, and 2 months became 3 months, and finally we get word back that the conferees have agreed to language on HEA. It's all said and done, and they didn't repeal the penalty at all. They lied again, or broke their promise again. And so we got reauthorization through all the way through the process with a Democratic Congress in place, and they didn't do anything. And when we called our allies, and we were, frankly, about as pissed off and betrayed as you could possibly feel, and we called some of our allies, and we were told flat out by members of prominent Democratic congressmen's staff that they were afraid that if they pushed this, that they would have attack ads run against them in the upcoming elections. They're afraid of being portrayed as soft on drugs. And I tell the story and I raise this point because we're not talking here about decriminalization of marijuana. We're not talking about legalizing, tax and regulating marijuana. We're not talking about. We're not even talking about legalizing marijuana for medicinal use. We're talking about just allowing students who've been convicted of marijuana possession to get their financial aid back to go to college. So something that has broad support. It's really relatively minor issue when it comes to the larger war on drugs. And we had assembled a coalition that was unprecedented in drug policy issues. So it wasn't just SSDP pushing for drug policy reform, or NORML, or MPP, or our allies. We had the NAACP and the ACLU and the United Methodist Church, and major organizations. So the point is, we had over 350 groups from all across the political spectrum pushing this, and yet they still were afraid of being attacked in the upcoming election. So what it really shows us is that we have to be very vocal in telling our members of Congress that if they support drug policy reform, it's not only not going to hurt them in the next election, it might help them in the next election. They need to hear this message loud and clear from constituents. We actually have an action letter on our website, schoolsnotprisons.com. It's a featured action right now that you can send a letter to your members of Congress telling them not to be scared by drug war politics. And just one final little plug for an organization that I want to mention is the Schools Not Prisons Political Action Committee that's not affiliated with SSDP, but this political action committee is dedicated to getting the worst drug warriors in Congress unelected. And it's to show that if you take the position of being the worst drug warrior in Congress, it's going to cost you your job. And they're starting with Mark Souder in Indiana. And so if you guys can visit schoolsnotprisonspac.com, you might want to get involved in that. We need to send the message to members of Congress that drug war, or favoring sensible drug policy, is not only going to not harm them, but it's actually the politically prudent